The grasslands fall silent as the lion's burst of speed loses its perfect timing. One wrong angle turns the hunt into a moment where the prey pushes back against the lion. Horns, hooves, and defensive kicks begin to test the predator's advantage. As other predators move in, the lion's setback becomes even more tense. Can the ruler of the plains regain control before it is too late? On land, the lion is a symbol of strength and control. But along the riverbanks of Africa, that balance can change within just a few steps. The crocodile does not need to display power. With a body weighing more than 1,000 pounds and powerful jaws built for a firm grip, it turns murky water into near-perfect camouflage for a sudden move. The relationship between these two species is not a constant rivalry, but a meeting of two territories. Lions rule the grasslands, while crocodiles dominate river channels, muddy banks, and shallow crossings. When a lion pride needs to cross a river or move down to drink, the line of safety begins to fade. On the savanna, a lion can sprint at nearly 50 miles per hour over a short distance. But once it steps into the water, that speed is slowed by mud and current. Each footstep sends vibrations across the surface. Below, the crocodile remains still like an ancient shadow, waiting for the signal to come close enough for instinct to rise. A sudden rush from the water's edge can force a lion to recoil and quickly return to solid ground. It is not only a lone individual that faces risk. A young cub trailing behind the pride can also be the most vulnerable link. On the shore, the lion is power. In the water, it must respect the cold silence of the swamp. Across the open grasslands of Africa, the impala appears as a symbol of speed and reflex. Its compact body, long legs, ability to sprint at nearly 50 miles per hour, and leaps of more than 9 feet help it escape many dangerous moments. It does not have the large horns of an oryx or the heavy build of a wildebeest. Instead, the impala survives through agility, sharp eyesight, and the ability to change direction in an instant. For lions, the impala is a potential target because of its moderate size and its frequent presence near herds and waterholes. But that same familiarity makes it constantly alert. A lion must blend into tall grass, tree shadows, and every patch of cover to close the distance before launching a sudden burst forward. Not every ambush succeeds. Beside a waterhole, even a carefully timed pounce can miss its line when an impala changes direction along the muddy edge. In another moment, a lion may begin its sprint from too far away. Just one step behind, it is left trailing as the impala spreads out and disappears into the landscape. Lion hunts often succeed less than 30% of the time, depending on terrain and hunting strategy. Against an adult impala, the chance becomes even slimmer. Young, inexperienced, or isolated individuals are more likely to be overwhelmed. On the savanna, failure is sometimes the price of speed and patience. Oryx is one of the most resilient antelope species in Africa's dry lands. A large individual can weigh nearly 500 pounds, tolerate intense heat, and move steadily across open sand. Its most intimidating feature is a pair of straight, sharp horns that can reach nearly 5 feet long. That natural defense can turn a hunt into a difficult test for any predator that comes too close. To a lion, the oryx is still a source of energy worth pursuing, but it is not easy prey to overpower. When two lions lower their bodies and move through the bushes to close the distance, the oryx usually does not panic. It keeps its front facing the danger, lowers its center of gravity, and waits for the right moment. As the lion moves in, the horns immediately point forward. The oryx may toss its head, turn its body, or step back in a short burst to disrupt the attack. The predator's formation slips off balance, and their overwhelming advantage begins to break. On the savanna, hunting instinct alone is not enough. Experience and discipline decide who keeps control. The animal that often makes lions cautious on the savanna is not always a larger rival, but the spotted hyena. An adult can weigh nearly 200 pounds, but its true strength lies in the clan. Hyenas survive through discipline, territorial memory, and the ability to call in others quickly. When two predators share the same land and food sources, conflict becomes almost unavoidable. Hyenas do not simply wait for what remains after a hunt. They are effective hunters, capable of coordination, angled movement, and pressure through numbers. With jaw strength measured at more than 1,000 pounds per square inch, they become formidable rivals. When the clan is large enough, even a young male lion can be forced into a difficult position. They do not rush in with chaos. The hyenas spread out, move closer step by step, and wear down their opponent through constant calls and shifting formations. Because of this, a lion's meal is rarely peaceful. When lionesses have just completed a successful chase, hyena silhouettes may already appear at the edge of the open ground. Calls rise, numbers grow quickly, and the pressure tightens. In these contests, the advantage often belongs to the side with greater numbers, stronger persistence, and better formation. But when a fully grown male lion charges forward, the balance can shift in an instant. Nature does not grant a crown forever to any species. Even the king of the savanna must sometimes pay the price. Before the roar is heard, the savanna often falls into an unusual silence. Sometimes, the first sign is a herd of wildebeest suddenly changing direction, while faint lion silhouettes appear behind the golden grass. The wildebeest is large, powerful, and difficult to control. Weighing around 600 pounds, it can sprint at nearly 50 miles per hour when pressured. Its curved horns help maintain distance from predators. The lions understand that strength alone is not enough. The pride must read the wind, lower their bodies, and advance step by step in silence. Their target is often an individual that is slower, inexperienced, weakened, or separated from the herd. Once the distance closes, the chase begins suddenly. One lion applies pressure from behind, while another cuts off the flank, forcing the wildebeest to search for an escape route within seconds. But if the prey maintains its rhythm, changes direction at the right moment, and avoids isolation, the trap can collapse. Even moments at the water's edge can become dangerous. Yet for a sable antelope weighing nearly 500 pounds, the shoreline may also become a defensive position. It turns its body, lowers its horns, and blocks the lioness's angle of approach. Just one small mistake can shift the advantage completely. Unlike hyenas, the longtime rivals that often compete directly with lions over food, African wild dogs create pressure through speed, discipline, and coordination. Each individual weighs only around 80 pounds, but the entire pack creates astonishing and sustained pressure. They compete with lions across the same territory, the same food sources, and the same familiar hunting routes. A pack of wild dogs can travel dozens of miles each day, following targets with endurance and constantly shifting formation. What makes this species famous is its remarkable hunting efficiency. In many areas, African wild dogs can reach a success rate of around 80%. That effectiveness is one reason lions often see them as rivals to push away from hunting grounds. For wild dogs, the pressure does not only come from losing food, but also from the risk of a lion suddenly closing in. When a male lion appears, its muscular weight immediately changes the balance. It can take over the food, break the formation, and force the wild dog pack to scatter. Younger individuals, slower ones, or those standing away from the group are often the first to face disadvantage. In response, wild dogs do not choose to fight through individual strength. The lead individual guides the group to change direction, maintain distance, and draw the lion into exhausting feints before leaving the danger zone, especially when pups are present. If a lone lioness moves too close to the den, the entire pack may work together to apply pressure from several sides. Not out of recklessness, but to force the intruder to step back. On the savanna, discipline can sometimes be more intimidating than strength. It does not rush into chaos. Instead, it overpowers its target through surprise and formidable strength. Each step across the ice becomes a precise act of closing distance under intense pressure. Even when facing other predators, it maintains control with a calm and calculated pursuit instinct. What has shaped the polar bear into one of the most enduring and commanding icons of the Arctic? When sea ice retreats early, the Arctic no longer feels like familiar ground, but becomes a demanding test of survival. For the polar bear, each week without ice means fewer chances to reach seals, and energy pressure begins to follow every step. Under these conditions, rare behaviors can begin to appear. Some large males, driven by hunger and the need to maintain condition, may at times turn toward smaller individuals. Near a thin ice opening, a mother, only about half the size of an approaching male, still positions herself between danger and her cub, which may weigh around 25 pounds. But the gap in strength is considerable. In a brief moment of disruption, the cub can become separated from its protection, and the situation shifts almost instantly. Yet the Arctic is not defined only by confrontation. At times, a beached bowhead whale, carrying up to 130,000 pounds of meat and fat, becomes a vast source of sustenance. Around such a rare opportunity, multiple bears may reduce conflict and share access to this valuable energy supply for days, even weeks. During the breeding season, pressure takes on a different form. Males rise upright, displaying size, releasing low resonant sounds, and testing one another with measured swipes before entering a prolonged contest of strength. The one that maintains the advantage earns the chance to approach a female during the season. For this reason, the story of the polar bear is not only about power, it is also a story of adaptation, where even a top predator must read the smallest changes in ice, wind, and time. Summer brings a different equation. To survive, the polar bear must rely on smaller food sources that appear more frequently along the coast. On cliffs rising dozens of feet high, seabirds crowd every ledge to nest, covering entire slopes in white. With paws nearly 12 inches wide for balance on narrow, slippery surfaces, the bear carefully climbs to reach nests positioned close to the edge. Each egg and each chick provides only a modest amount of energy, but during lean periods, these small gains repeated over time can make a meaningful difference. By late summer, another opportunity appears where fresh water meets the sea. In waters just a few feet deep, salmon are forced into more predictable paths as they pass through narrow channels. The bear stands still, observes, then surges at exactly the right moment to seize the opportunity. Compared to an adult seal, a single salmon offers far less energy. Yet through the summer months, it helps fill the gap left by less effective hunting conditions. This is how the polar bear makes use of every small opportunity to move through a season of scarcity. The polar bear is the largest land-based carnivore on the planet, a symbol of strength in the polar regions. An adult male can weigh around 1,000 pounds and stretch close to 10 feet in length. Its fur is nearly transparent, yet appears ivory white, with a thick layer of fat beneath that protects against the cold. Wide paws help it grip the ice, swim long distances, and maintain balance across shifting sea ice. Yet behind that powerful form lies a life constantly challenged by melting ice and the pressure to find food. Across the vast snowfields, faint gray shapes appear at the edge of the polar bear's vision. Here, the boundary between ice, open ground, and food sources is always shifting, forcing every northern predator to calculate each step. An adult male polar bear carries immense strength, enough to hold a clear advantage in tight coastal spaces. Yet even so, this encounter does not begin with movement, but with observation. A pack of wolves does not seek a direct test of strength, fully aware of the difference between them. Instead, they move cautiously along the outer edge, tracing deep tracks in the snow and reading the scent left behind from earlier feeding. Only when the bear has moved on does the rhythm begin to change. A few quick steps forward, the formation tightens, and what remains becomes a valuable opportunity for the group. In the Arctic, survival does not always belong to the one with greater force. At times, it depends on restraint and the ability to share space in order to endure. The walrus is often called a giant of the ocean, one of the most formidable opponents the polar bear can face. An adult male can weigh around 4,000 pounds, carrying thick skin and sharp tusks that can reach up to 3 feet in length. These powerful defensive features are enough to make even the most confident predator act with caution. For that reason, the polar bear rarely targets the strongest individuals in the group. Instead, it approaches from the edges, quietly applying pressure to disrupt the formation. As the walruses become unsettled and move towards the safety of the water, the tension begins to rise. Within that brief shift, the true target emerges, often a younger animal or a weaker one that falls behind. Each successful hunt can provide the bear with more than 100,000 calories, an essential energy reserve that can sustain it for many days without feeding. Yet this strategy remains a high-risk gamble, because every major opportunity carries a significant cost. And in the end, success is not always decided by strength, but by who chooses the right moment to act. Belugas are among the most remarkably adapted species in the Arctic. An adult can grow to about 16 feet long and weigh more than 3,000 pounds. They live in pods, moving like white ghosts through the frozen sea. But even this intelligent whale cannot escape one basic biological limit. It must reach the surface to breathe. And that single vulnerability has been fully exploited by the land predator. When sea ice closes in quickly, an entire beluga pod can become confined to a single breathing hole or a very small patch of open water. At that point, the polar bear does not need a long chase. It simply circles the edge of the ice, watching the rhythm of the pod as it rises for air. Then comes the perfect moment to strike. The bear slides forward a few feet in a low position, driving power from its shoulders, timing the movement precisely as the water opens and closes again. In shallow coastal waters or river mouths during summer, the polar bear may follow migrating beluga pods as they gather to molt. It waits along the rocky edge, quietly closing the distance before suddenly entering the water. The target is often a calf, or an individual that drifts out of formation as the pod changes direction. From rocky shorelines to narrow breathing holes, the polar bear shows that in the Arctic, survival does not always belong to the strongest, but to the one that understands the rhythm of nature best. Along the edge of the Arctic sea ice, survival can hinge on a small circle opening within the endless white. It is a seal's breathing hole, the shortest path from deep water to the freezing air, and the very place where the polar bear commits an entire day of hunting. It follows scent carried by the wind, reads the fractures in the ice, then selects a position and waits in complete stillness. When the seal surfaces for air, the opportunity lasts only a few brief seconds. In a single, controlled burst, all the advantage of patience is focused into that decisive moment. If that instant passes, the ice returns to silence, as if nothing ever occurred. In another situation, when a seal rests on the ice, the hunt becomes a quiet movement beneath the surface. The polar bear slips into the water, swimming with precision to approach from below, staying hidden from the prey's alert senses. The surge happens in an instant, before the seal can respond. Field observations in Svalbard show that the success rate of approaching seals resting on the ice is only about 1 in 10 attempts. This reveals that in the Arctic, raw strength alone is never enough. Survival often favors the one that can wait longer than the one that stays on guard. In the end, the savanna continues its unforgiving rhythm of life. The lion learns that power is never completely free from mistakes. In the wild, every setback becomes part of the experience of survival. To continue exploring nature's most unpredictable encounters, be sure to like and subscribe. And as the wind moves across the golden grass, another hunt quietly begins.